think there is a misconception about BDSM in the straight community that if there is, I think particularly the SM part of it, that in order to keep the charge, to keep the spark going, you have to keep kind of escalating the stakes or the extremity of the practice. What have you found in speaking with practitioners? Is that a fallacy, or is there, I mean, maybe in
No.
some cases there's truth to it, but
Well, it's complicated. That's why I'm pausing
yeah.
and trying to collect my thoughts on how I want to answer it because I think it opens up several different points that are really worth talking about. Um, it's not a fallacy. I think that, what I was saying before, people are looking for ways to keep it exciting, and one of the ways that they seek out that excitement is to increase the intensity. And then increasing the intensity also brings up questions about endurance and how much can the body stand and what are we trying to do to our bodies in order to keep it feeling exciting and pleasurable. And there's quite a bit about BDSM that is inherently fascinated with limits, right? The whole, one of the, I would say, major categories of BDSM is called edge play, right? And edge play can involve any number of different specific activities, but the point is how far can you go? How much can you take? How close to the edge can you get before it's too much, before it's too far, before the knife is actually cut into the skin and the blood's flowing and you weren't intending to draw blood.
Mm.
It can be these extreme situations, but the excitement is in the extreme,
In
right? And
playing with the edges.
it's
Yeah.
playing on the edge and playing with the edge, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot that's really interesting psychologically about that because really from childhood, you can look at toddlers and they're already discovering the edge and they're experimenting with it. I'm having a memory right now of being at a restaurant with my nephew when he was probably about 4 years old, and I think he discovered lemon for the very first time. Like somebody had ordered an iced tea, and like he took it and bit into it, and just the look of sort of excruciating revulsion on his face. But then what did the kid do? He took another bite.
Yeah.
That he can't stay away from it because it's like so extreme that he's fascinated with this of like, let me learn this horrible thing, right? And then
Yeah.
after a while, it doesn't even become so horrible anymore. It's in human nature. It's not just BDSM, but BDSM foregrounds it. And um, what do I want to say? Kind of honors that fascination.
Hmm.
And
Makes it explicit and
yeah, yeah. Thanks. That's what I'm
kind
trying
of
to
brings
say.
it into consciousness.
Yeah, and then what happens? What happens to us? Because I think that's so much. Um, there was one author of a really great BDSM book. His name is Raven Caldera, and the book is called Dark Moon Rising, where the subheading is the ordeal path or exploring the ordeal path. And that's very much the idea of edge play. But then you can look at, this is getting more into, I think, the archetypal aspect of BDSM, that you have these rituals and ceremonies and cultures all around the world and all throughout history that have involved a kind of very strategic use of pain and suffering as a form of initiation and as a form of psychological transformation, right? And is it that different what people are doing with kink and BDSM, except they're not always consciously entering into it with the objective of psychological transformation or wanting to create a container in a ritual space for something sacred to happen.
Mm.
But nevertheless, I would say from a Jungian perspective, something numinous is very much happening. often to their surprise and delight, and that's what draws people back over and over again.
Yeah, like the unconscious motivation could be a kind of initiation and personal transformation.
Yeah.
How important do you think it is for people to be conscious of that? Like,
Mm.
it's like psyche's going to individuate, whether you're aware of it or not, and maybe it comes as a surprise revelation, like you said. I mean, even when you interviewed people around this, practitioners, how many people were thinking this way?
Mm. Few. I would say it's definitely a minority, and that's one of the things that I was trying to be careful about with the book, but I don't know that I was as successful as I wish I had been. Which is to say, look, there are many different ways to enjoy sex, and not every one of them has to be an individuation path. Or, if you're not foregrounding your psychological growth through the way that you're being sexual, you're missing something, and you need to go back and do it differently. I did not want to set up any kind of a juxtaposition between right and wrong or an ideal way to do it, much like I'm kind of praising the film for having avoided that trap. Um, that being said, what I think is really fascinating about BDSM, among other things, is that it creates this potential for growth and transformation that we normally don't think of when it comes to sex. I think I have a quote from James Hillman in the book where he's saying that actually this was something Jung indicated early on in his writing, that sexuality is a way that the soul speaks, that our libido and our sexuality are tied up very much with the unconscious and with the reality of the psyche beyond the conscious personality. And so, as far as having a connection to soul and being what I would argue is probably the most psychological expression of sexuality. What we find in BDSM is something that is really connected with the unconscious and with the archetypal depths.
Hmm.
So that that potential is there, and it's to me like right on the threshold of being made explicit. And some people will immediately get that, and other people will say, I don't quite follow you. That's not what I experience. I like the sensation. I like the intensity. Um, I like what gets created between me and my partner, or the creativity of it. But I'm not doing it to transform or become more mature or more individuated. And um, that's not what I'm after. And that's absolutely, like, that's just true. That's just the way it is.